Let's start right there with what you just said. So, we start these recordings, folks, and we so often have just come from talking to each other. It's Friday. We were just sitting at farmer's market where my kids have booths selling stuff, and we were having coffee, talking about life. And you just said what we feel as we're older, feel more wise, more wisdom,
but
but
we're less able to use words to express it.
oh, I was going to say certain because
Right.
we
We're
talked
less certain.
we talked about that. So here you are, and you're Dr. James, medical doctor, functional medicine expert.
I do have a concrete degree.
You have a concrete. I do not, but I have a lot of listeners, so apparently I have something decent to say, and yet. And we're supposed to know it all. You're supposed to have arrived. You're supposed to be up on stage guiding people in certain truths. And I think people believe that less and less, and they like the fact that we're all on the journey, and we are. So here we are talking, trying to make our own decisions, dealing with our own health, and not certain.
And not in.
Oh, okay.
And comfortably not certain.
Comfortably not certain. Well, I really like the analogy you gave this morning that I had not heard of about how they build foundations in China. If you'd asked me, or Japan, where they have, or California, where they have earthquakes, and I would have said, oh my gosh, they must go much deeper and much more solid. You would have
thought, go to bedrock and really anchor it in. And that's
go a mile down in and beyond solid.
So when we were living off base, and we would walk around, and this is pre-kids, and we're exploring another culture, and we live in an off-base house, and it was a newer neighborhood. And so there was houses being built in our little neighborhood. And so we would walk around and, just like here, you kind of snoop around the new house that's being built. And it's like, I just thought, oh my God, this is rickety. And that's exactly what it was. It's sort of like, and you can hear the classic, and you see the quote unquote shanty towns of whatever back in the old Tokyo or whatever. And you would look and the typical elitist thought process is, oh, ours is so much more solid. We're so much better builders. And the reason that they did that and still do that is so that there is movement inherent within the building, because when the ground shakes, if you're solid, it's bad. It's like driving a car with no shock absorbers, and it just rattles you to death, like the old wagons, I would guess to have been. and so we were talking about that this morning, that here we are at 50, and some of the things that we thought were super solid,
that we were certain on.
We were certain. And it's like, well, it depends. Yes, I'm certain about that certain fact, but now with 50 years behind me, I'm sort of certain about it over here in this context, but less certain about it in that context.
Kind of, I think about certainty of the concept. I mean, conceptually,
the framework.
We have seen more life grow from a diet heavier in vegetables than fast food.
Yes, that would be a pretty solid framework.
Because I want to say with certainty, no, the carrot is better than the Hot Pocket. I want to say and you feel like you should be able to, but there's always the exception.
Always going to be the exception. That's right.
And so
and even the exception of somebody out there listening right now. In fact, Kristen is a great example of somebody, and Kristen is our functional medicine coach. And this is public knowledge that, she lived very, very, very well, ate the carrot, did not eat Hot Pockets, got cancer. And so she would say, okay, well, yeah, exactly what. And that, and kind of what we want to talk about today, we can maybe use her, because what she now knows is that her solidity that led to the shakiness that came to cancer wasn't Hot Pockets and smoking and lack of enough carrots, but it was in the mental, emotional aspect of her life.
Okay, great. Because I do want to say to that, if she had been as she was and replace all those carrots and healthy things with fast food, I would say her cancer might have come. I'm going to surmise. We don't know for certain.
Can't.
but we can surmise that it might have come earlier. It might have been worse. She might be dead as a result instead of recovered. So I don't want somebody to hear that and go, yeah, that's why I just say we're all going to die anyways.
Yeah, we're all going to die.
Might as well just eat the fast food and whatever. And again, we are going to say without certainty, though, we have seen, we would say evidence-based, I can't say certainty, evidence-based testimony to better health outcomes with carrots as opposed to Hot Pockets. So we're going to say that, I would figure.
Yeah. Would the shakiness of her infrastructural system through the physiology lens have been more disrupted earlier if into her exact same context she had put Hot Pockets instead of carrots? And we're going to guess yes. But here's the other side of that question that creates the uncertainty is, what if, because part of her, and we're not going to pick on Kristen all the time, but we're going to say people's, in this case, part of the demise was her, was the certainty, the
rigidity.
Yes. She felt so incredibly limited and rigid in her approach that she never got the celebratory Hot Pocket or cake. And so that brings in the uncertainty. If somebody eats dirt with a sense of gratitude and joy, whatever, and now we're bringing in the mental, mysterious component to all of this, would Kristen's cancer have not come?
Well, and there you're back. It reminds me of back in the, traditional church days of carrying your religion or your belief as a burden or as a gift. Do you do that?
Yeah.
How many people are out there damaged by people who were, staunch Christians
religion,
or whatever religion, and they carried it like a burden and hellfire and brimstone, and they had a crappy life and they gave crap to other people through their lives, as opposed to somebody over here. And I think that's a lot of times why religion's had a hard hit, because you have somebody over here who denies religion and is kind and peaceful, and you want to go with that. Obviously they're not exclusive, to each other, but that's what we're getting to, today, is the mindset in essence. Can we, if we're
the infrastructural mindset.
So I want you to share. So this is not about this book. This is another book on top of so many that we've read, but you got me into it reading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. This is a guy, he's a chiropractor, but he kind of came into fame or notoriety from, was it an accident that he had?
I'm not really exactly sure.
He had some accident, totally,
like so many doctors,
totally wrecked him. And he, through his, mind work primarily is what he cites or gives testimony to, rebuilt himself. So in this book, he's talking about the quantum use. So we're not going to get into quantum physics necessarily,
but let's set the context of where you and I have been over this last 6-8 months.
Yeah.
Because I happen to have read a book that was dovetailing, and I think the title of the book was The Bible and Physics. And so it's okay, we have the theory of relativity, we have all this weird quantum physical stuff that just bends your mind. Well, how does that then relate to kind of the old stodgy truths of religion, or even the stodgy truths of, like you used the idea this morning of gravity? Like, doesn't matter what you think about it, as like you jump off a building, you're going to pay the price. And that's kind of how we have thought about other mindsets. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter how you think about it. If you eat Hot Pockets, you're going to be sick. And it's like, yeah, but what about, and here Joe Dispenza comes in, and here I had been one of the really staunch, don't smoke, don't do all these things, do your exercise, eat your carrots. And the evidence-based is that you're going to be better. Yeah, but, and so here we bring in the context of you and I wrestling with, as we're raging teenagers and as we're wrestling with our own mindsets, and we have friends whose marriages of 20, 30 years are just all of a sudden gone, and health all of a sudden gone, whether it's you and I and our feet or whatever. And so how much of that is in our flexible mindset? And so Dispenza comes in, and so his first book was in like 2000. This book, I think, is 2012. So this is the zeros kind of data. And his other famous book is on the placebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so there's another, people in America hear placebo effect as negative, as like, oh, it's all in your head. And then we're saying, well, what if you just flip that and say, even if you just imagine yourself as fill in the blank, as having a better marriage, as losing weight, as feeling better in your feet, how much of an impact does that actually have on the raw physiology of your feet?
Because it is all in your head. And that's what's frustrating. I don't want that. I want certainty. I want black and white. I want a reality that is truly reality. And yet we're not allowed that, because the same thing, the same event, we can be driving in a car, you and I, and the same event happen. And to me, it's tragic, and it wrecks me, PTSD. And to you, it's an epiphany, and it's something you look back on and say, that was great. What's the reality? We cannot say so often, and yet we want to. So it is the placebo effect, which on that, I'll tell folks in the True Life podcast, March 18th, 2021, we did a show called The Placebo Advantage and talked about that. And this is going to overlap some of it, but this brings us back to it. And I do want you, I don't want to jump the gun on it, but I want you to hit his study that he referenced. And I'm not going to pull it out, guys. You can go get the book. This is a conceptual show if you want the details, but he talks.
Because that's it. Our infrastructure on this show is to wrestle with these words on the concept.
Yes.
And so
philosophy even of health and wellness.
So I was gifted the book, right? So I wouldn't have gone and bought it, but it was gifted to me, and kind of somebody said, you should read this. So I'm like, okay.
Well, and I got it because you did, and it was on the heels of my dad saying, yeah, I'm reading this guy.
Right. So there's these convergence, just like
when I see people that I respect that are impacted. I see repetition of a book, a person, whatever. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah. Okay. And so me too. And I had just read this other physics book, and there had been some other things, and you and I had been talking about this. And so reading the book, and I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. And it's like, oh gosh, I don't want to go this way, because like you just said, I want the rules.
It's like our buddy Scott said, this jacks up my dogma.
And in fact, we can refer to that where it's like, it's to say at a high view of Christian theology, there was the Old Testament, and that's exactly what the Pharisees did. Just give us the rules.
Yeah.
And we can do it.
That's been my
Jesus
life.
comes along and he says, it's just not, that's it. That's not it. And our friend Scott said, Jesus just jacks up my dogma.
Yeah.
We want dogma. Do this and you'll be fine. Do this and you'll be rich. Do this and you'll be healthy.
So I can get up today, control my life,
and expect the outcome. In control.
And I'm not independent. I don't want to be dependent on God. I just want to know the rules. Let me do it. I'm good.
That's right. Okay. So you and I grew up kind of in that black-white-ish religion. And here we are, we're raising teenagers. We're in a culture our culture's gone fluid, even with gender, even with how to run a business.
Jacking culture.
Yeah, that's right. And it's very, very uncomfortable. Okay. So we're wrestling with this in our own hearts and walking with kids and over here in medicine and in business, it's like, okay, so then the book comes along and we're both reading it. And the first chapter of the book is Joe Dispenza saying, okay, well, look, if physics is this way, and I had just read this book on the theory of relativity and all this stuff. And it's like, all right, can't argue with that. 100 years of Einstein, it's not the theory of relativity, it's the law, right? It's just that it just is shy of becoming a law because of that last little itty bitty piece of the mystery of the fourth dimension, of whatever you want to call it. And so we have philosophers wrestling with this over here. And Dispenza says, okay, well, don't get lost in that. Mm-hmm. Here's the fuzzy science. If that's then true, which it is, because we went to the moon and back on that 60 years ago or whatever. Okay. Now, what if your mind has an impact on how your foot feels, or your heart feels, or your belly feels, or anything, or your blood pressure? Take a deep breath. And you're like, all right, well, and so to prove that, and down in his book, The Placebo, there's the study after study after study of the impact of the mind forward on your body, or in reverse, in perception of whatever the body is feeling. Mm-hmm. Okay, so So then let's refer to that study because it's just mind blowing to say, all right,
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It shouldn't be true any more so than the theory, than the fact that time will contract if you go fast enough. Okay. That shouldn't be true.
In our economy, in Randy and Kevin's white American, traditional
middle
Christian,
class,
whatever you want to say,
right.
In our economy, I think, come on, no. Now to somebody else in the what we would call, the woo-woo Far East or something like that, they may go with duh. I mean, okay, so
maybe so. We don't, right? So here we are in our economy, and here's the study: is that imagine there's 100 Kevin Millers over here doing in Group A, and another one in Group B, and another one in Group C. So the Kevin Millers over here in Group A, they don't do anything. It's you over the next 6 months doing the exact same thing. Yeah. And in Group B, Kevin Miller gets whatever we use over here, a 30-pound dumbbell. Yeah. And every day you do curls to the point of failure,
resistance training, and yeah,
that's right. Okay, so
I'm going to, and I get that. That's black and white.
That's black and white.
I'm going to break down the muscle. I'm going to go to failure, break it down, tear it down. It's going to let it rest, build back. You let it rest. It's going to build back up a little bigger in accordance to the food that I eat. Maybe
in accordance to raw physics.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Math. I want math. 1 + 1 = you work out, you eat, the muscle grows back bigger, and then down the road, I've got a bigger bicep.
Okay. We need to do a whole nother show on math because we have to say simple math.
Right.
Not theoretical math.
That's the only math I know is simple. So when I say math, it by proxy means addition. Simple math. Yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. That's right.
Rudimentary,
rudimentary math, lift a weight. It's going to do something to your muscle that we can measure.
Yes.
Group C.
Understand. We can measure, understand, makes sense.
And Group C is Kevin Miller, who with intentionality and with true effort thinks about lifting that weight and goes through the motion, feels the contraction and not does it. You and I are sitting here putting our arms up and down. Immobily thinking about it only with your brain, with your arms at your side.
Envisioning my bicep being bigger. I'm envisioning it being tighter against my
imagining the potential that's in your muscles. Yeah. And we don't like these words. Okay. 6 months later, Group A, and now this is a real experiment. Group A, who didn't do anything, is their muscle measurement any bigger? No. We expect that. Group B, is their muscle bigger?
They lifted weights, ate food, rested,
did all the right things. Is their muscle bigger? Can we hold up our muscle? And is it bigger?
Measure the bicep.
Yes, it's an inch bigger.
Yeah.
Group C, is their muscle bigger?
Doggone it, yes.
And doggone it, not as big as Group B.
And it was something like Group B, who literally worked out, did what we expect, was a 35% improvement. I didn't put the numbers down.
Well, let's call Group A 0 because there's no change. Group B, call that 1. So that's the measuring the average increase in size of the muscle is called 1.
Okay.
And Group C increased their muscle mass by about 30% compared to 0 and 1.
Okay.
Right. So a 30% improvement.
But a marked measurable improvement.
That by simple math.
By sitting there thinking about it, and you want to say that's hoodoo guru, that's stupid stuff. Is it all in your mind? And he's saying here's the study.
There it is.
You can go. I mean, it's referenced in the book. I'm not going to.
And there's dozens of that kind of thing. The piano study where you go to an expert piano person and they do scales and you do a PET scan on their brain while they're doing scales. And then somebody who does just scales in his mind and is lighting up the brain as if you're doing scales. So now we're being hit with it's like the theory of relativity. It doesn't matter what you really think. Time and space will contract if you go fast enough. And we have all these space movies built on that and black holes and time contraction and whatever. It just warps your mind. And we don't get to live it out because we're in Newtonian physics here on Earth. 1 + 1 is 1. But we have to conceptualize it if we want to, get messages from the moon and the Mars land rovers, whatever else. So that's not our economy. But it's true. And so now, and Dispenza is saying, okay, it doesn't matter really how you grew up. Doesn't matter whether you grew up in America or in India or wherever. Here are some facts. And so Kevin Miller, Randy James, how's this going to impact the way you choose to live in the future?
And what we say now, so we started off the True Life podcast. If you go back to episodes, I think 1 and 2 were kind of introductory. And then 3 through 13, we literally went through the tenets, I'm going to call them, of functional medicine, which we called input, output, recovery, and relationships. Now that's because we broadened out a little bit on functional medicine, which, you're an expert in, which has that as what they just eat, sleep, or nutrition, exercise, sleep, and in mind, body. Is that right?
Sort of ish, right? Like,
but they do break it out into 4 parts there. Okay. So we're talking about the mind body. So to come back to, you were using Kristen, which is somebody we know, but somebody who has a health problem, whether it's cancer,
which is all of us,
or achy knees or whatever. And you're saying, okay, let's look at your, from the basics of functional medicine, which is beyond regular basics, but basics there of input. What are you putting in the body that the body doesn't want? What are you not putting in the body that it needs? Exercise, movement, working out the body, sleep, and recovery. And then this other one is what we're talking about, mind and body. And because I don't want to say that, so here's somebody who got cancer, who was doing all this great healthy stuff. Well, that's great. I'm going to assume that helped them. But what we're saying over here is we're going to somewhat sabotage, somewhat negate, somewhat lessen all of our efforts by the reality of our mind. So when we're over here doing, and Kevin is sleeping great, he is exercising great, he's eating clean, what's my mindset about those things? Or over here, my mindset about what's going on in my business, finances, relationships, whatever.
And one more area there is, what is your mindset about the things that are subconscious? You don't know what you don't know. And one of the things that we don't know is what we do by habit. What is your mind? And that's,
well, and you say what we do, and I'm thinking also what we be.
Yeah.
So, because there's always, what am I being through the day? If we could put the electrodes on me, is through a given day, how much anxiety, bad stress, worry, fear, anger, bitterness, unforgiveness,
peace, love, joy, gratitude.
So there, and you would say we're all on the spectrum. Well, day to day, where am I? And it is taking or giving life from me. It is building or degrading my health.
That is right. And that phrase comes out of this new book we've been reading, the Finding Quiet book, of every instance of input, output, recovery relationships, your food, your exercise, and bad things, well, quote unquote, bad things are, it's an opportunity to create a default mode network, a being of growth. We could use so many things. You're either a growth mindset or a fixed mindset.
And I like giving resources. I feel like more and more we're curators, and I want to do that.
Another book.
So mindset is Carol Dweck, Dweck. She is the queen, king, whatever. We can't do genders anymore. So of mindset. So that is an incredibly powerful book. You just mentioned Finding Quiet. That's JP Moreland. Right. Moreland. And he is a faith-based guy, a Christian guy, but he's speaking at this. It's an incredible book. And I don't want to forget heart math out of that, but okay. Mindset is what you're talking
about. Right. So that you were mentioning, what's your relationship with life over here?
I was going to say that's really, and that feels so huge, but we're talking about life. And back to your thing, we're saying, aside from all these healthy things that we're going to lay out as hopeful pillars, I love the pillars. What are the pillars of health? And we're going to say, well, of course, vegetables are good, and fast food has been shown to generally, not be, but overall that we're saying one of the bigger factors is, how do you feel about life? And it is so daunting, because it's
a thing. Feel about your carrots or your Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
And so the word that I've been using in the clinic is trying to, look somebody in the eye and say, what is your relationship with XYZ? Wine.
Okay.
Fast. Okay, Kevin, what's your relationship with fasting?
Oh,
there you go. Okay, you just gave it to us.
I did. It's
okay. What's your relationship with meditation?
Same thing. Yeah.
What's your relationship with your bike?
awesome. As my lover.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it would take you journal upon journal pages to flesh that out.
Yeah.
So your mind is doing something in the background there, right? In a fluid, like it, we wouldn't look at you and say, oh, shame on you for loving your bike like that. That is an idol. You bad person, you need to no biking on Sundays. And I grew up with, we don't do something on Sundays.
Right.
And remember the book, remember
Chariots of Fire.
Yeah. I hate that line. Boys, we don't play football on Sundays.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's crushing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, but that's the old stodgy fix. That building is going to fall down.
The mindset matters. And to that, so you talk about fasting. So when we were doing the 3 days a week, you know, fasting, one of my daughters started doing it, and she did it a couple of times. Yeah. And she finally said, I'm going to stop because I'm so disdainful of it. I'm feeling depressed. And I supported her, you know, and that goes against the, you know, hey, you know, whatever you don't want to do, when you do it, that's what builds strength and character, whatever. Maybe so. I mean, if you're on the battlefield or the sports field or
there's
whatever,
a time and a place for rules.
There could be a time and a place for, okay, but that is significant when people look at, and let's take health and wellness captive. And we did a show. I'll try to see if I can find when we did it. And we said, how do you feel about your health and wellness? Do you have negative feelings or positive feelings? And I want everybody listening to think about, where is that area in your life? Is it your weight? Is it an ache? Is it a pain? Is it brain fog? Is it lack of clarity? Is it just a lack of hope and whatever? And how do you feel?
And I would say too, so there's going to be a group of people, you listed negative words, but okay. And I don't feel any of those things, but to me and you, I would say, well, I want to feel more peace. I want to feel more joy. I want to have a deepening relationship of awareness with my subconscious of when it's not like I have zero worry that my marriage would wind up on the rocks, but it needs to be better.
Right.
And so when there's, you know, how do we enhance and in fact, and I think this is where Kristen, circling back around to her, would have said, gosh, had I been living the life of less negative rigidity and more fluid positivity, or whatever the words are, about my not worry about, oh my gosh, I got a hot pocket in there instead of a carrot, would there have been less chance of cancer? Of course. But can you look her in the eye and say, oh my gosh, your cancer is your fault because you just had a negative attitude about it? Of course not.
Well, it was an ingredient. It was an ingredient.
Absolutely. And now our 15-year-olds, we can't talk to them this way. I mean, we could, but it took us 50 years to be able to come over here and say, okay, I've lived through some earthquakes in life, and some of my buildings got a little shook.
Yeah.
And I need to enhance, not get more solid in my rigidity. I don't think I need to get more joints in there, more. It depends. You mentioned how our bodies do in the, remember when you said, when we said there's a time and a place, and you mentioned war. I'm using this example in the clinic all the time. When you think about your immune system, most people think wrongly that it's Army, Navy, Air Force, where
battle going on.
And that's part of it. And there's a time and a place. Doggone it. If you have an infection, you need the white blood cells, everybody come out, and you're going to get sick and tired and achy and feverish and feel terrible. But what's the immune system doesn't go away when you don't have a fever anymore. Now, most of it is diplomacy.
Right. Diplomacy
is what we're trying to get at in this mind-body connection thing. The fluid, all the time relationship that we have with the viruses floating around in our body right now.
Okay. So here's what in my mind, as you say that, you know, the relationship with our body I'm going to polarize, and you've got the average, I'm going to pick on America, average American man, woman, middle-aged, jobs, kids, mortgage, home, soccer, whatever. We are absolutely busy. There's no margin at all. Life isn't bad, but it's just challenging. There's a lot that we don't look forward to, and we're often looking for a break, but it's fairly harried. That is the norm in our culture, whether you're single or whether you're married with 12 kids. Over here, then let's pick on, Buddha. You've got the person in the lotus position up on a mountaintop in Tibet with nothing. Everything is perfection. It is nirvana. No, nothing troubling the waters at all. And we look at that and go, okay, so that's it. That's the goal over here, is we just have to get rid of every stress, bad stress, every tension, every challenge over here. It's not possible over here. And we're not, again, we're looking at environmental issues, and obviously those have a huge factor on our mental state. But ultimately we're saying outside, let's set those over here, and let's put a third point over here and just say what matters is your mental state. Because if that person over here is in the lotus position and they're pissed about it and they're disdaining it, like I would be, like, are you serious? This sucks.
Or they've neglected their nothingness, means they've left their family.
No purpose.
Their purpose was
whatever.
Nothingness, which most of us would say, no. There's got to be a somethingness.
Is there peace? Is there joy? Is there inspiration? Is there fulfillment? And, same thing over here with that harried, what I might look at it, say harried. What you're going to say as a doc is say, well, the specifics are one thing. How do you feel about it?
What's your relationship with soccer?
Right. Again, we're back to mindset. But I wanted back to Finding Quiet by JP Moreland. He talks a lot about heart math. You've literally been using the tool of heart math forever, or decade, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. Right?
In the clinic. Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't personally say I've been doing that.
No. But I mean, you've been using it in the
concept, and
we talked about it this morning. It is looking at heart rate variability. Give a layman's terms on
heart rate variability. So not your heart rate, not your pulse, or 50, 60 beats a minute, but the milliseconds of difference between beat to beat variability, which before heart math and you telling me about HRV, heart rate variability, I would have thought that, okay, if I'm a healthy athlete, I have a low resting heart rate, that it's just going to go along, boom, consistent. And consistent is actually not good. That's not variable. That's not variable. That's right. That is the lack of variability is consistent with a mind that is, and let's say that mind body piece, with people who are in a state of not peace, chaos, harried, it would be a good word. And so what are the words that are opposite of that? And in the heart math world, their word is coherence, convergence, resonance, rhythm. And in our traditions of growing up in a kind of traditional Christian, conservative, whatever kind of a place, we didn't speak those words. We kind of said, get your work done. Hey, good job. You got an A on the test. Really proud of you. Great job on your, sports. And hey, go to bed on time. Here's your curfew. Don't drink, don't smoke. And
if you're griping, be positive.
Right. Like, let's not, if you don't have something good, don't say it. And of course, and all that's good, but there's a missing piece here. Like there was sort of a movement of the third way, right? Like, let's not be polarized. And that's kind of where we're getting to, is this, we're all on the spectrum of everything all the time. And so in the heart math, that idea of, okay, I am a dad. I can't leave my kids. I am married. I can't leave my wife. I do have to take a kid to soccer. I do have to do all these things, but it's my mind that's in there. And so as I'm doing these things, I can think about it harriedly, and my heart rate variability will drop. And now it's kind of like you're not flexible. You're stilted in your 60 beats a minute, and you can't get out of it because you're harried. Or I can be driving my kid to soccer and be thinking positively about it, and I'm enjoying the view or the trees or time with my kid in the car or whatever. And that heart rate variability will go up. Mm-hmm. And here's the cool thing. And here's what Joe Dispenza kind of said is, it's more tangible than you think. It's not as quantum or relative as you think. You can train it. Now, the training mechanism is not lifting up a concrete barbell and doing this, but we're back to that thing with your mind and your muscle. Yeah. You can train your mind to impact your body. You can go and train your body, right? We know if you exercise, that's going to lower your depression, anxiety. We know that. The body can train the mind back and vice versa. The mind is an influencing training aspect of the concreteness of the body. And that's where our brains kind of explode.
Yeah. And I do. So it was July 30th, 2020 in the True Life podcast, July 30th, 2020, we did a show. Do you have negative feelings about your wellness? And that came to light because you have plenty of people who come in here as patients, come into the practice, this office, and they are burnt. They're exasperated. They're frustrated. They've been doing all this stupid, healthy stuff.
Nothing's working.
Nothing's working.
It does not work.
And there's your place to start on how you feel about it. And to what you said, so if I'm going along, so right now I have been struggling with plantar fasciitis. I switched shoes. I think that's where it came from, and gave myself plantar fasciitis, which I'm frustrated to even admit, because we did a show recently on how to run and talked about minimalist running. And but I did some shoe switching and even started running with my kids, kind of switched my gait. And I think I gave myself plantar fasciitis. So I'm dealing with that. So I have an injury. I have something that my nerves down there are telling me something's not right. It's not acute right now, but something's not right. So we're saying, okay, for the healing of that, for the betterment of that, one thing that matters is my overall feeling about life. Who is Kevin at large? Am I enjoying taking the kids to farmers market this morning and setting it up and helping them prepare? Am I enjoying having extra family over? Am I enjoying my work? Am I at peace with my finances? So all that matters to it. So that's one, that's the big picture. Well, I'm going to say small picture, then the focus picture too, the one that this one got me on with Joe Dispenza talking about the bicep, is what am I thinking about that foot? Because the truth is, I'm irritated.
You're mad.
I'm irritated.
You're a victim too.
Yeah.
It happened to you.
It happened to me. I am a victim and I'm irritated. I was doing all the right things.
You're Kevin Miller, for heaven's sake.
I am Kevin Miller, for God's sake. And here I have it. So what are my feelings about it? They are negative. I don't have any positive feelings about that. What would the training be? Am I grateful it's not worse?
Okay.
It could be worse. We know a lot of people who cannot run at all.
I'm so glad I got 50 years of running.
Yeah. I have the money to buy different shoes, a splint, all these things that I'm doing to treat it. I've gotten dry needling.
You don't have a job that puts you on your feet all day long?
Right. I can stay off my feet. I can bike, which I happen to love. How many things? Okay. And so what are my feelings about that? I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up, because we talked about it this morning. So in Ziegler's show, one of my other podcasts, episode 901, I had Shanti Feldhahn, who you know, Shanti Shaunti, and then Feldhahn is Feldhahn. And we talked about joy. Incredible show. I'd really recommend everybody on this topic to go listen to that episode. But from that, she talked about venting, and I posted a meme, which I looked on the Ziegler Facebook page, and I think there's 600 comments. Wow. And it was saying venting does not let steam off. It throws fuel on the fire. Volatile statement, because everybody looks at that and goes, that is not healthy. They say that because the understanding we have in our culture is the opposite of that is stuffing. And she would say that is horrific too. Both of those.
That's also throwing fuel on the fire.
Yeah, both of those. And this is their research, not opinion. They did surveys and studies and whatever. So this is their research. Both of those are bad. There is because you just said the word, there's a third way. And a third way is looking at it and finding something to be grateful for, which I just did. We just did that exercise with me. She on the show talked about doing it in the recent months. She had a breast cancer diagnosis. She's sitting in getting radiation, crappy experience, getting radiation. And she's thinking, I have to practice what I preach. What the heck am I? I'm not supposed to vent and be pissed and accuse and blame and be angry about this, but I'm not supposed to stuff it. What do I do? And she said, find something to be grateful for. What can she be grateful for? And her first response was, holy smokes, I'm so grateful that radiation exists, because without it, I'm just going to die.
Yeah.
That's what would have happened. Is that a legitimate, that's not well, she actually poked holes in the Pollyanna thing and said the Pollyanna real story is actually good. But in how we frame that wasn't just stupid positivity. She's not supposed to sit there and go, I'm
so glad I got cancer.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
So
And that's where people say, oh, you're not being realistic. You've got, and we're not saying don't be angry and don't
no, she's
whatever.
saying feel angry, but don't go
and
expound on it and vent. That's their studies.
Purposelessly. Yeah. Vent it out.
Throw
is not
vitriol
good.
on that. She's saying that's just going to increase it. Over here, don't stuff it. And that's me.
Right.
I'm a stuffer. That's what I would do. Stuff. And I've proven to myself that doesn't work either, but it's come over here. Admit it, man. I'm disappointed I have cancer. I would rather not have cancer. I do. Can't control it. I'm not God.
But I'm so glad there's chemo radiation.
I'm so glad
there's a fighting chance here of doing something.
She could say, I mean, she went further. She could say, I'm glad I'm self-employed. I can take time off, which she did. And she talked about that in one of the shows, actually in show 903, she talked about that some more too. So many things to be grateful. And she's just looking at the science, just like Joe Dispenza. She's just saying, okay, if I hook myself up chemical electrodes and just check out what's going on, if I vent, killing everything.
So we could ask her. She answered the question, Shanti, what is your right now relationship with cancer?
Right.
And she would have said, oh, well, let me just say, yeah, I hate the thing.
I'm disappointed.
I'm so broken about this and my kids and my whatever.
Maybe even ashamed somewhat. Yeah, I would be ashamed.
We've talked about what if Randy James gets cancer, and I would wrestle with some of those feelings, and that would be my relationship. But I don't stuff and don't vent constructively. Now we're back in the mind. God has given us this gift of freedom. The power of choosing how to think,
which we can prepare for now.
We can exercise that. In fact, we should be doing that and not waiting for the cancer the foot problem.
That's exactly where I was going. If I just assumed, this sounds so pessimistic, but it would be arrogant for me not to think that in the next week of me driving on American roads, the possibility is not there for me to be in a horrific car accident that I can't control.
That's right.
That it absolutely
be unwise.
Is possible. That could cripple me. That could kill me. What can I do right now? I shouldn't be in fear of that. Right now, my first thought, Randy, was, I'm glad I got life insurance. My family would not be destitute.
That's right.
I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for the love, and I don't have a lot of regrets with my family. I mean, I could start.
You and I could also say we're self-employed.
Yeah,
we've got disability insurance.
Well, you mentioned Hal Elrod. So I've had Hal Elrod on a show before. He wrote the Miracle Morning book that sells one of the best-selling self-published books of all time, I think, that now is traditionally published. But he has a story in there where he was in a car accident. I think it might have even been a drunk driver. Somebody came over in the lane, hit him, broke his back. He wakes up, he's in the hospital. Doctor says, you're never going to walk again. And the long story short, he so quickly reacted so positively that they were concerned, talked to his parents and said, I think he's loopy.
Yeah, he's only 20 years
psychotic because he's dealing with it. And his dad talked to him, and he went back, and this is more in the story of the Miracle Morning. He talks about, actually, no, it was in his latter book, The Miracle Equation. And he said, I have been training myself for years to have a positive outlook, to look at gratitude. And he actually even cited an exercise where he got from somebody else and said, when something bad happens, I give myself 5 minutes to
have a tantrum,
moan and gripe and have a tantrum. And then I can't change the thing that happens. So why not be happy? And he talks about that. He did it so long that an event happened and he started to, and he said, well, why even take 5 minutes?
5 minutes?
How about 20 seconds, whatever. So he did this leading up to, back to your thing of practicing that. So now he has a car wreck. They say your back's broken, and he's trained himself. He's created the groove, as you would say, in his brain, the habit. And he goes, well, that's terrible. And my gosh, I don't know. He may have screamed and moaned and yelled and why God me for a minute, a day, I don't know, but pretty quickly enough to freak everybody out. It's like, okay, well, let's see, I can still type. Somebody bring me a computer and let's just keep rolling. Are you kidding me?
And we look at that as
that's Pollyanna. That's
right.
Not,
it's a story. That's what we see in the movies and in the books and whatever, or that's to that guy. And you and I are saying, no, let's wrestle with this in our lives right now. If this is true, if physics is physics and all of that, how do we every day be becoming Randy and Kevin that's more likely to react in a in a better
Resilient.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
resilient, capable, loving, kind, gracious way to whatever might come. And I think now at 50, the words that I'm saying to myself that I am more resilient than I would have been at 25 to 35, when theoretically it's like, those were the days of you and I take on the world. We can handle anything.
Right.
And, let's go get another business, another degree, another trophy, another whatever.
Say yes to just everything.
Say yes to everything. And I want to experience everything. And that wasn't wrong or whatever, but now here we are in culture. We're 50 and we're seeing our culture struggle.
Okay. You went to the culture. I thought you were saying I'm 50 and I'm seeing myself struggle.
And that too.
Finding these
there
areas.
Is plantar fasciitis and my skin does look too old.
But from a mental aspect, the certainty and the holding on and the absolutes and the whatever, and I'm finding myself, I'm tired of holding on to those when they're not. There's earthquakes.
There's earthquakes, and it's not going to. And this morning, so we also have to speak to we're not saying go build your house on the sand, because you can't do that either. That's the extreme over here on the other side. But
I have a great analogy. I was going to say it earlier, but so I built my house. So I dug
clay.
I helped dig the foundation. I general contracted the thing. It has a great foundation. Okay. It has a great foundation. Last summer, I built a tree house, 2 pine trees coming out of the same kind of root structure. 2 pine trees come up, and I built that. Well, if I built it 100% solid, as soon as the wind comes along, those trees those trees sway at different, they're not together. And so I had to look, I got on YouTube like everybody else did. How do you do this? And it showed how to create pivot points in essence. Yeah.
That's the Japanese house.
So it's solid. I mean, it's rooted into, it's solid, but flexible.
Yeah. Not solid in a stodgy,
in an unmovable
way.
Right.
And you and I 20 years ago would have heard that and say, oh no, there is absolute truth. And I still believe there is absolute truth. But I'm now coming to learn that part of the mystery of absoluteness is movability, is pivot points.
Yeah.
There's a time and a place for a hot pocket. Now there is.
Yeah.
Now
I was gonna have a donut thing over at Farmers Market this morning with coffee. I forgot.
We would have shamed you to no end.
I was okay with it.
But there's also, like in a marriage, I don't believe there's a pivot point of it's okay to have an affair. Like there's and gravity still exists.
But even that, you say that, and I don't want to go extreme, but we do based on our values.
And I wouldn't look at somebody if they had an affair and say, well, then get unmarried. Like it's all gone. Yeah. It's broken.
Because somebody's going to cite somebody who's happy, who has a, what do they call that? A
open
marriage or whatever. I'm going to question.
I'm going to say in the bigger picture, like if we look at 100 people over the course of time and you have an open marriage, then I'm going to argue, well, over the course of time, that's not going to prove functional.
I do too. And when we look at absolutes, certainty, proof, and we're saying that is so difficult to have, there is evidence-based testimony. I'm going to use the word testimony, evidence-based testimony that I do want to know. And so looking at the evidence, looking at the stats, what does create the best marriage? What does seem to create the most health?
Yeah.
Seems like the veggies are kind of winning.
Yeah.
Okay.
And not smoking is winning.
Right. And so because everybody wants to point out, anytime you bring up something like this, I'd accept it. My grandpa lived to 99, sharp as a tack, and he ate nails.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And somebody else ate carrots, had cancer at 40.
Right. Okay. Yep. Always exceptions. But if we're going to look at the norms, and I'm going to look, when I come into my business, I'm not going to look at how can I do this really stupid and difficultly to be success. I'm going to ask people, what's the quickest way to the most abundance with this business? And I'm going to go after that. That's what we generally do.
Right. How do you set a budget? How do you budget time, money, effort, your resources, make projections? And here we are again in a framework of fluidity and pivot points.
And so Dr. Joe Dispenza would say, Kevin, you want to fix that plantar fasciitis? What have you been, when was the last time you sat down, took a minute, 5 minutes, whatever, and thought about it healing? thought about it strengthening, thought about it being more flexible, thought about the pain going away. I don't do that. That's hoodoo guru. Come on, give me a break. It's got an injury. It's going to fix itself or not. I can take a pill, get a surgery. I had somebody the other day saying, you got to get a steroid shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can stick a needle in that thing.
Yeah. And he's saying, what about this one? If it's 25% of the process, and that's what we don't know.
That's what we don't know.
What percent?
Nor can we know. We are not meant to know. We're not meant to be able to know in that way.
On his bicep study that was done, though, there was a measurable result. And he may say on that, he may look and go, gosh, from what he's seen, 20% of the healing of my foot is mental. And I'm actually right now, I'm not ignoring it. I'm giving it negative.
You're
I'm
hampering that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. We also have to go into that group B. No.
A?
We have to go into the group that increase their muscle mass by thinking.
By thinking. That's C.
Okay. Now,
right?
And that was C. It's not every single person increased by 30%. Some were 40,
average.
Some were 0.
Right.
So the 0 guy would say, well, it's not working on me. Therefore, that is a lie and false.
And the 40% guy would say, dude, that's all you have to do. You
that's
never have to.
He would write a book.
Yeah. And say, here's the truth. Here's the certainty.
And that's where I don't think Hal Elrod did that. I think he didn't come out and say, this is right for everybody all the time in every situation. But he's like, hey, here's what worked for me. But 5-minute miracle morning kind of a.
But I am glad you said that, because that is, as I look at the huge
the bookshelf,
so many of the books we need to watch out for, because it is somebody who had an experience. It could be an exception, and they're going to, not wrongly, but they should with grace.
That's what we're saying is books that are in the middle don't sell.
Well, even like with Hal, and it's funny because I pick on him and Robin Sharma a lot. Robin Sharma wrote the 5 a.m. Club. Hal is the Miracle Morning, and they're both kind of get up at 5. You have your hour. Robin says you work out within 20 minutes to get your BDNF going. Your brain, you do all these, and they have these things. And I did a show not long ago, and I said, you know what? That's great. The point is just to do that stuff. And if your life and whatever, and you don't do those things until 5 p.m. or you do them 5 a.m. after staying up all night because you're an artist or you're working in a factory, whatever. Now, norms, are we seeing the best results from 5 a.m. in their structure? Sure. But don't get stuck in their things as well. If it works for you, I don't work out till 10 or 11 o'clock most every day. That's just what works for me. Honestly, it's because that's when it's warmer up here in the high mountains. So that's when I do it, and I'm self-employed, so I can do that. The point is just to do that. So for us we so want to even look at these books and these influencers and hear their testimony, go, okay, that's the truth. That's how to do a great morning. That it's a really good way. Maybe it's the best. It's not the only.
Right. It gets, and I have, in fact, weekly have patients and one woman said it the other day after, and she was a prospective customer client, and somewhere in the midst of her statement, she said, I'm so tired of fighting. I just want you to fix me. Mm-hmm. Meaning,
good luck with that.
Give me the law that I can obey, and you're going to guarantee that I feel better. And people don't want to buy a product where I say, well, that depends. And so I'm very careful to say, you have to understand, I'm not guaranteeing anything other than words and information and relationship to help you get from here.
You don't even know this. You're saying that. So we're recording this on a day, actually today, July 2nd, 2021 is a Friday, and posted today. I posted an excerpt on the Ziegler show of this True Life show. And I did our show on supplements. And right off the bat, I say, so this is how I started the podcast. We did it a year ago or something. I said, so here's the thing. Does everybody need nutritional supplements, doctors? And you said, well, it depends. yeah. Which that's not what people want to hear. They want to hear, yes, this is the milligrams and you'll be good.
And we'll guarantee younger, smarter, better, faster.
But you are going to give norms. You're going to say, your history has shown an improvement with patients as one of the ingredients is nutritional supplements and vitamin D. Yeah, you generally are going to look in this arena. So there are some evidence-based testimonies that we can't say are proof, certainty, or absolute, but yes.
And I would even say you're doing a double, I forgot what that word is, but evidence-based means testimony, right? Like
Oh,
it is evidence.
okay.
The evidence or the testimony sheds that if you generally eat more carrots than hot pockets, you're generally going
I
to
was
be.
trying to say something besides like evidence-based proof, which is what came to mind. I can't say.
It is the phrase evidence-based. Now the jargon out there, if you say evidence-based, kind of what people hear is the science is settled. ABC equals whatever. And that's what I call the shackle of the randomized controlled trial. If the randomized controlled trial is the best way to procure evidence for the way to eat, think, live, breathe, and take this pill and how many milligrams and what to do for cancer, then the norms are over the course of time, and we have a $4 trillion system that's, to Shanti Felton says, here's what you do with cancer. And there's great goodness in that. And it doesn't work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so then you can't wear the shackle of evidence-based when it comes to hot pockets and carrots, or the way to run a business or the way to run a marriage or the way to run your mind-body connection. Because now everybody wants to say, and I was, screaming at Einstein himself, show me the proof. And of course, he tried to, and it's pages and pages of math that you and I can't even begin to understand. And he spent the next part of his career, do you know what after World War II, and now it's called the unified theory, like people trying to unify the theory of the four energies, gravity being one. Now it's space-time. It used to be, space was one, time was one. Now we know space-time is the same thing. Yeah. And then there's, I forgot what they're called, the big energy and little energy or whatever that some people call dark matter, or we just don't know. Right. And there's no unifying theory. And I don't think there ever will be. We're not meant to know. There's always going to be a mystery. Now, I'm not saying that as an anti-science, whatever thing. I think God gave us brains to go and try to figure the things out. Let's do that. But at the end of the day, we're in a culture that's struggling with, but why? And we have teenagers and they're, what is your mission, passion, purpose? And like, why do I need a mission, passion, purpose? But I just want to have an itch I want to scratch, or entertainment or whatever. And then to most of our listeners who are in that middle-aged kind of a place to say, what do I do with my overweightness, my fatigue, my sore knees, or my sore plantar fasciitis, or my brain fog? And today we're saying, well, one of the things to be becoming more and more aware of is the way you think. Your mind stance is a piece of the equation.
That's what I come to. I just wrote that down. This will be either in the title of this show or right at the top of the subject line or the definition of the show explanation. It's an ingredient. I want to say a primary ingredient, but along with, as I look at my plantar fasciitis or your achy back or your hypertension or your autoimmune problems that you're looking at, as you would hear us talk, as we do mostly on this show. Hopefully that'll continue to change. I think we're coming more this direction, but talk about, okay, what are you eating? What are you not eating? What's going in the body? What's causing things there? Are you exercising? How are you sleeping? The recovery, we tend to put more and more focus on that, I think, because we're seeing the evidence based results of that. But over here, how are you thinking in general about that thing? And again, even there, what this is bringing me to, Randy, that, his bicep research on there is, I do spend more and more time, thankfully, and I want more of being aware of my mental state overall. About life, that's overwhelming, but I'm getting the power of that hugely as an overarching ingredient, at least for me in my life. But am I taking the specific thing captive, like this problem? How am I thinking about it? Am I doing the mental exercise like I would to tear down my bicep with a dumbbell and let it rebuild during sleep and with food? What am I doing with my thought process towards this problem of plantar fasciitis? The only thing I am feeding it currently is negative thoughts, frustration, irritation, disappointment.
And we live in a culture, a medical worldview and I'm eager for my medical and dental school buddies to actually hear this show and think about it, because they are in the dentistry world. When you have infection, when you have caries, when you have then thank God for dentistry. Tooth pain is one of the most exquisite ones. and I want it stopped now. Right. Like when you're in the middle of torture, and that I'm going to that because you're way up high. When you get to that level of pain, you go to the dentist, and it's like Shanti, you go get your radiation. You go to the dentist, and my other friend is a colorectal surgeon, and you have cancer down there. You cut the thing out, and that's mostly what those guys do.
Well, in dentists, I don't know if an overall profession or just from a medical profession, have one of the highest suicide rates, is what I've been led to believe, dentists, because it is such a general, again, this is something I read, such a negative environment generally. Nobody wants to go to the dentist.
Right.
Kids hate it. They're screaming, they're crying. It hurts like a son of a, I'd rather break my arm than go get, a tooth.
I don't know if that is
that not a fair statement?
Right. I don't know if that's true anymore because they are so good with pain control.
Okay.
So good with.
Maybe so, but I was thinking, as you talked about that, I was thinking,
sort of the negativity of the office.
But I'm thinking shame on me for having a tooth problem and being so pissed that I have to go see the dentist. I mean, you can hear it.
Yeah.
I got to go see the stupid dentist today because a stupid thing. And I'm just sticking a fork in my eye. Why am I doing it? Instead of going, man, I've got a pain in here. I'm so grateful that there's a dentist nearby. There's multiple ones I can pick from. I can afford it, or I have an insurance, or somebody will help me, or I have a credit card, or I have whatever. And then I'm going to be able to go get this addressed.
Out of pain. Yeah.
If I was in the bush in Africa, it might kill me.
You would take a pair of pliers to it. I mean,
my gosh. And that's not Pollyanna. That is literal ability, that there are so many things that we can have gratitude for. We can change the mindset and give positivity instead of negativity.
And what you were trying to do a summary statement, and I diverged this back over here to in my world, in the MD world, where everything is built on treat the pathology, the measurable pathology.
Right.
We're admittedly saying, let's go way, way upstream before somebody has colon cancer, before somebody needs a root canal, but how the day in and day out, Monday through Friday, how am I thinking about my teeth, right? Like I brush my teeth. But have I ever thought about the oral microbiome and the incredible complexity of what's going on in the mouth? And I'm not, trying to get weird here, but in a sense, we are getting weird about, I'm going to endeavor now, when I'm brushing my teeth for a minute, I'm going to have some gratitude for a toothbrush, and gratitude that I don't have to go to the dentist today, and think about my teeth and whatever the mind-tooth connection is, which I'm sure that we just don't have enough science to understand the nuance of what's going on there.
Yeah.
We do. Now we know about the mind-heart connection. We've got measurables there. We've got mind-gut connection. But that means I have to think that there's a mind-tooth connection that we just don't know about yet.
Yeah.
In fact, why is it so innervated? If it's a hard surface, why does it need all those nerves to chew? That's a question. Well, anyway, I just went down my own rabbit hole, my own mind there. Thank God for an insurance system and a system where with acute infection and acute trauma, we've got some really awesome system to help. But what's going on in everybody's mind right now as they drive to work is, I don't like my job, or my car's breaking down, or my kid won't behave, or whatever. And that's where the power of the mind and how you choose to think about it.
It is. And you hit me a second ago trying to make a summary statement, but as you're saying that, one of the things that I don't want to leave out is just the aspect of expectation. And you and I have talked about that. We are guys who don't get sick often. Now, I got COVID and had a hard time with it, but just the general scope of life. And again, as I see humanity, see our friends, see our family, I just realize, gosh, I don't tend to get sick as often as the norm, or not as bad as the norm. Is that, and I want to attribute that to because, I eat this way, I exercise this way, I sleep this way. And you and I have surmised how much of that is a reality of we just don't expect to get sick. And I think Joe Dispenza would say that's a huge ingredient that is helping your body fight off, regulate whatever,
right,
and not get sick. And it reminds me, Henry Ford is famous for whether you think you can or think you can't, either way, you're right. I don't want that. I want there to be a reality, and I want there to be an absolute right, an absolute wrong. And it just is. And he's saying, no, you kind of create that reality. I'm helping create.
Yeah. You're not the only creator.
Right. I'm helping influence.
You have a creative Influence. Okay.
on my health and wellness by how I think about it.
Absolutely.